The previous basket is under review.
Welcome into another episode of Weekend Under Review. That is Matthew Winick. I am Brian Rauf, here to walk you back through the weekend of college basketball. Look ahead to the games that are coming up this week. Some good ones on tap. We'll save the super loaded slates for after the football playoffs, which have provided plenty of entertainment in and of themselves this weekend. Before we dive into the games this weekend, which we're going to start with Michigan's loss to Wisconsin, before we get into that, remind you, subscribe to Basket Under Review if you have not. Doing so gets you access to all of our paywalled content on the website, basketunderreview.com, and access to the Discord, which features all of Chili Donovan's scoops and intel. Best community of college basketball sickos there is on the internet. So make sure you subscribe to Basket Under Review. If you are subscribed to Basket Under Review, or if you are just a enjoyer of ball nolly content on the Basket Under Review YouTube channel, you may have seen that there was a scout team video that went this week on how you game plan for Michigan. I'm just going to assume that Greg Gard is a huge fan of Basket Under Review from what we saw from the Badgers, getting a 91-88 victory over Michigan in Ann Arbor. Matthew, we had talked before. This was, I think, the first result this season that really took us by surprise, at least in terms of these top teams, because Michigan had been, the second highest rated team all time on KenPom coming into this game. And to lose the game at home to a Wisconsin team that has struggled against this level of competition at this point in the season was certainly surprising. How were the Badgers able to get it done?
Well, when your starting big men go 8 of 14 from deep against drop coverage, you're going to win a lot of basketball games. Let's just say that. It's not just hot shooting. Wisconsin obviously the scout was on point. They did a fantastic job. But when you play Michigan with their two elite rim protectors in Daimara and Merez Johnson, you have to pull them away from the hoop. And Michigan was not really respecting Nolan Winter and Belauskas to hit their jumpers. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, the big men, and neither of Winter or Belauskas were shooting that well from three on the year. They had a combined 21 made threes coming to the game. Of course, they make 8. They make more than a third of their entire season combined in one game. What happens if a big man hits 2, 3, 4 threes? I think Belauskas hit 4 of 4 to start the second half when Wisconsin really kind of turned this game up. Remember, Michigan was up 14 in the first half. It's not like Wisconsin kind of stomped on their necks early. When do you start changing your defensive style? And for Dusty May, I don't blame him for sticking to his guns. They've made it this far and been this dominant doing what they've done. But when you play a certain style, when you are a relatively unique team, there are going to be just outlier performances that you cannot withstand. And Michigan almost withstood it. They're that good. Mm-hmm. I don't think this docks Michigan too far in my power rankings.
Yeah, I think it's important to look at this from a season-long perspective. You're going to have games where not everything breaks your way. And there's going to be games where you don't play your best. Couple that with the opposition hitting 15 threes, this can happen. The UConn team that won the 2024 title, that was just a buzzsaw, lost the game at Creighton by about 18 or 20, if I remember correctly, because Creighton simply couldn't miss that night. I think what makes this interesting is the fact it was in Ann Arbor and the fact Wisconsin has not looked good against this level of competition. But big picture, I think Wisconsin, obviously getting the big win here, this is going to propel them. But Michigan's going to be fine. Michigan's going to be fine. If you want to look for things for Michigan, I did dive in on the Rauf report that's up on basketunderreview.com. There are some interesting splits with Michigan in conference play so far this season. There's been 5 games now. Defense has not been anywhere near as good as it was in non-conference play. And I won't dive too far into that. Again, you can go check out the Rauf report at basketunderreview.com if you have a subscription. If you don't have a subscription, again, subscribe to Basket Under Review. There are some things defensively that are concerning from conference play, and it is a 5-game sample size, so not tiny, but still small. I wonder if there is something to – this is Dusty May's now second year in the Big Ten. If there's just the conference opponents know you better than anybody else. If there is something to that, I lean more in the camp of Wisconsin hit 15 threes, and this happens. But Michigan almost lost to Penn State this week. There might be some cracks here that Michigan is showing.
Now, what Michigan playing in these close games is illuminating for me, and I want to ask you this: ball in, like, let's say Michigan's down one, 5 to 10 seconds left.
Mhm.
Like, whose hands do you want the ball in? I don't actually know the answer to that. Like, for as amazing as Axel Lendeborg is, and he is their best player, he's not one of those guys that you want dribbling the ball with 5 seconds left, looking for his own shot. Obviously, Mara and Morez Johnson are not guys that are creating. Elliot Cadeau has been way better as a shooter this year, but that's still not his strong suit. Like, I don't know. Do you have an answer? Because I don't know whose hands the ball gets into in like an ISO situation down the stretch.
I think you still want it to be in Yaxel. I think you still live and die with your best player, your first round NBA draft pick, making a play there. Is his skill set fit to be like the most opportune to just call ISO hero ball and let him make a decision? Probably not. But I do think you use his size advantage that he's going to have against smaller players, the skill advantage and the power he's going to have against smaller players. Against bigger guys, he's got the quickness advantage. Like I still think he is the one you go to. He is your best chance because of the mismatch problems that he presents, along with his passing. But it's not perfect. It's not like you're giving the ball to Walter Clayton and trust everything's going to be okay, right? But if that's kind of what we're nitpicking with Michigan, then I think that says something as well. I would still put it in the hands of Yaxel, though.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think it's more than a nitpick, though. Like, there are going to be close games, whether it's the NCAA tournament or not. Like, somebody has to be hitting these shots. And, I mean, down the stretch, it's not like Michigan didn't have their chances. They absolutely did have their chances. And they inevitably just, came up short. They're just not a team that is necessarily built for down the stretch, ball in the hand, clock running down, who's hitting the jumper. Like, I think their leader in dribble jumpers is Cadeau by a little bit, but they're much more of a catch and shoot team in general, and they're a lot more of team basketball offensively than individual isolation. And it's just, I worry that in a big spot, this situation is going to come back up again, and whoever has the ball in their hands is not going to be prepared to just make that move off of the bounds.
That is a fair worry. We haven't seen them in this position too many times. So maybe it's something they work out if they see this more and more. But kind of to your point, that's ultimately what did Duke in. And last year, we figured Duke was going to figure it out, but they weren't enough for that situation. So maybe Michigan finds itself in a similar boat here, certainly. Let's stay in the Big Ten because there was another undefeated team that looked like they were going to lose until Nebraska decided they were going to erase a 16-point deficit, come back and get the 83-77 victory over Indiana in Assembly Hall. Nebraska keeps answering every question about them, and that's thrown at them. I thought the game script and the way this game was playing perfectly into Indiana's hands. And then Nebraska just was like, yeah, no, we're going to figure this out. Raise the defensive intensity, figured things out offensively, got into a rhythm. Like they showed the resolve that I was not expecting from this Nebraska team. We know they're a tough team, know they're a good team, but to be down that much on the road, the game going the way that it was, to totally flip it on its head, I think is as impressive as anything Nebraska has done this season.
Oh, absolutely. It was absolutely one of, I mean, just watching the game, like, you didn't see that coming. It kind of came out of nowhere. What it did come out of, though, was Tucker DeVries getting his fourth foul in the mid-second half. Tucker DeVries was +5 in this game, and Nebraska loses by 6. It's -11 in the 11 minutes that DeVries was off the floor with foul trouble. And this is not the first game Tucker DeVries has been, settled with foul trouble. And it's been a big problem for this Indiana team that just has no depth. Mm-hmm. They really don't. They have role players off of the bench. And even their starters, like Connor Enright and Seton Conaway, are role player guards. You do not, I mean, Conaway's fine at getting to the hoop. Connor Enright's largely just a passer. The Nebraska defense, after Lamar Wilkerson hit a couple of shots with Tucker DeVries off the bench, was like anybody but Wilkerson. And Indiana had no answer with DeVries on the bench. Versus with Nebraska, Sam Hoiberg's kind of in the same vein as Enright, where he's not looking to shoot basically ever, but he runs this. He knows the system. Obviously, his dad kind of created the system, so it kind of helps. But the way that Sam Hoiberg knows the system, he could take 0 shots all game and not even be a threat to shoot, and he'd still have a positive impact.
Mm-hmm.
And Nebraska's role players were way more effective in this game. And honestly, that was the difference in a game where Rink Mast wasn't really that good.
Yeah, if you said before the game, Lamar Wilkerson has 32 and Rink Mast has 13, you're assuming Indiana wins fairly comfortably in this game, right? And I think that speaks to Nebraska. There's been somebody different most nights that has been able to pull this out. The way they've played the connectedness with which they play is truly incredible. 27 points from DeMarcus Lawrence was the real difference maker in this, but 4 Cornhuskers in double figures. Just another impressive performance from a Nebraska team where, it's mid-January. We should probably come to expect this from them now. They will lose at some point, I am sure, especially if Michigan lost. But this is a damn good Nebraska team.
Well, here's what I'll say though: their next 4 games: Oregon, Northwestern, Washington, Minnesota. Do they go 4-0 and face Michigan undefeated?
The Minnesota game is at Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota's been knocking everyone off at the barn.
Yeah, that's a tough one in a look-ahead spot too.
2 days before the Michigan game. Ugh.
I do not expect them to welcome Illinois on February 1st undefeated.
No, well, they have to play Michigan first. If they make it through the 4 quote-unquote easy games and then win at Michigan and face Illinois undefeated on February 1st, I would be stunned. But also, they've stunned me like 4 times this year, so who knows?
It's what this team does. It's what this team does. Speaking of Illinois, they won the best game of the day on Sunday, beat Iowa 75-69 in a game that they controlled really throughout. The score may indicate it was a tight game, and it was, but I also never felt like the result was truly in doubt, except for maybe a couple seconds in the second half. So what allowed Illinois to control this one at Iowa?
In this game, Illinois had the better point guard, and I don't think it was that close. And Kylan Boswell is so underrated, man. Like, he's incredible, and he can do everything. He has the strength of a small forward or power forward. He's a great passer. He's an unbelievable defender. The shot's kind of falling this year, but like, he picks his spots. He's running pick and roll at the top of the key. I think he had a bucket or 2 in the dunker spot with all the passing that they have, like with inverted action with Tomislav Ivicic. And he's strong enough to finish around the hoop, especially when there's no elite rim protector for Iowa. He's so versatile, and he doesn't need 20 shots to be effective. He doesn't need the ball in his hands to impact the game, and he was just so impactful. Iowa doesn't have that guy. Bennett Sturts is obviously incredible, but their secondary ball handler is Cale Combs. A lot of people are mad that Brendan Housen's not playing, and initially that I was too. Like, this guy's so good, and he is. But the problem is, in retrospect, at the high major level, Brendan Housen and Bennett Sturts don't work together because they're both relatively small, undersized defenders, and Brendan Housen's not a playmaker. You need someone with the ball in his hands to alleviate Bennett Sturts. Cale Combs is just not really a high major player, and he's the only other guy in this team that Ben McCollum clearly feels comfortable handling the ball. Obviously, there's other stuff going on with Housen, like, for sure, but for Iowa to only have one guy that can create at all at a high major level is really hampering them in these big spots.
That was what we talked about on Friday's episode previewing this game was, Iowa, there was a lot made about Iowa's road struggles, right? Well, those are all the good teams they had played were on the road. So it's a matter of them struggling against good teams or struggling on the road. This is our first chance to see how they handled one of the higher end teams at home. And those limitations were still very much there. And they got dominated on the glass, dominated inside, the way you would expect, given the way Iowa is constructed and also the way Illinois is constructed. But Iowa, the counters that Iowa has that worked against quad 3, quad 4 competition in the non-conference just have not worked against higher levels. They're 0-3 in quad 1 games this season. They're 3-4 against the top 2 quadrants combined, and some of those games are only quad 2 because they're on the road against bad teams. I just don't think this Iowa team is very good. I think there is a floor that's going to keep them from being like really bad per se. But there are teams that where I look at like SMU last year, where you knew they would handle their business, but you also knew that whenever they played against a good team, there was no shot in those games. I'm not going to say Iowa has no shot in those games, but they give me very similar vibes where I think you trust them to handle their business, but you don't trust them to kind of overachieve against some of the better teams that they play. The limitations of this roster and some of the skill sets, I think, really show themselves against the better teams.
Okay, but counter argument, like the Minnesota loss happened. Minnesota's been really feisty at home.
Mm-hmm.
Their other 3 losses are to number 3 Iowa State, number 7 Illinois, number 13 Michigan State on Ken Palm.
Mm-hmm.
I get that this was a home loss, but Illinois is a top 10 team in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not docking them for a 6-point loss to Illinois, a 4-point loss at Iowa State, and then losing to Michigan State in that entire team's first Big Ten game ever. And then one tough one-possession loss at a feisty opponent. Obviously, the entire season, most of the Big Ten season is still, to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And with Ken Palm projecting 11-9 in the Big Ten, should they hit that mark, which I think is fully sustainable, like this is still an NCAA tournament team, the bottom would have to fall out a decent amount for me to feel like they're not worthy of a bid. They're not going to lose to the Penn States and Rutgers of the world. They're probably not going to beat the Purdues and the Michigans of the
Mm-hmm.
world. There's a middle ground where it's like, okay, you're still a top 30 team, top 40 team in the country.
I think where they sit in that is very much to be determined, though, because that's kind of my point is that there's a floor. I also think there's a very real ceiling. And yes, they have not played a ton of these high level teams, but even though the games that they've won, like you beat Ole Miss by 5, which in retrospect looks less impressive than it was at the time.
They won this weekend. They won.
Oh, Ole Miss needed a win this weekend.
They got it.
I think where they sit in that mid tier, like in the bubble conversation, is very, very up in the air right now. And the month of February, we're gonna find that out because I don't know if I trust them to go to West Lafayette and beat Purdue. We'll talk about that game a little bit later. That's coming up on Wednesday. You go play at Indiana. I think that could be a good litmus test as well. But after that, you get a whole bunch of teams that are in that same kind of mid-tier Big Ten range. And that's going to be, I think, the most important part of Iowa's season, assuming that the wheels don't fall off here the next 2, 3, 4 games, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
Where else do you want to take us? Obviously, a lot of other stuff happened. A lot of other games were played this weekend. So what really stood out to you?
Yeah, Memphis. We talked about them in the offseason when we had our shows in September and October.
Yep.
We were not high on Memphis. I thought this was Penny Hardaway's worst team ever. The lowest he's ever been in Ken Palm is 76th. They're 87th now after an 11-point loss at FAU where they were losing by 17 late. And the crazy thing is Memphis shot 43% from deep compared to FAU's 29%. They killed them on the 3-point line, but they got dominated on the interior. They lost the turnover battle, which is not a Penny Hardaway team thing. They're normally great at stealing, at getting turnovers. And they did not play well. Doug McDaniel is clearly overwhelmed with his role. Their best player in this game was Aaron Bradshaw, who was like benched for a month and a half because Penny Hardaway doesn't like. It's a bad sign when you're 7th in the country in bench minutes, which Memphis is right now, at 45% of their minutes coming from their bench. It's because Penny Hardaway is like searching deeper and deeper in their bench and they can't find anyone. They added like 4 horrible big men transfers, one from Stephen F. Austin and one from Ryder and one from Columbia, because they just kept on trying to find like a big man. They were like, we have no big men. We got to find someone. We got to find some players that fit this roster. The team's bad. They don't have good players, and Penny Hardaway is not a coach that props up average players. He's a coach that finds good ones, and he didn't find good ones. And so now when you look at an American conference that is really down this year, I don't have any faith that they're winning this thing. Like they're 2-1, but in their 2 wins, like 6-point win over Rice, 9-point win over North Texas, who cannot score. This team's not winning the American. And for Memphis to have the resources they do and the coach they do in a down American to not really be an extreme competitor in this league, That's a big problem, and that is not good.
I think this is really the first time in Penny Hardaway's tenure where he has used up all of the "I'm Penny Hardaway" goodwill that goes around Memphis. It Everything around that program just seems kind of despondent right now, and just kind of disinteresting. The fan base is not as engaged as it has been. There does not appear to be like a real future. You've gone through the typical transfer portal turnover every offseason. Sometimes he's used it really well. Sometimes he hasn't. But sometimes you've seen, or I should say most of the time, you've seen them put forth at least a solid product on the court, right? And that hasn't happened this year. The Americans a one-bid league. Easily. A one-bid league. And it is going to come down to how they do in the American Conference Tournament. And I don't have faith. I don't have faith in them. And this is it'll be interesting to see how things go, because just Memphis is one of those programs with the expectations they have in the league that they do, where negative vibes start going and things could fall apart very quickly. You get like some of the quit watch and quit factor, which is not just special to Memphis. That happens with any real transfer portal heavy team, and you have a bunch of 1-year rentals. Pair that with kind of the general apathy around the program, and if there are questions about Penny Hardaway's future, it's an interesting couple months, I think, to monitor the Memphis program.
Yeah. You know what a bad roster build is? Top 50 in Division I experience and dead last in minutes continuity. That is never going to lead to a good team. And not only is it not going to lead to a good team, it's going to lead to a bad team the next year too, because then you have to do the exact same thing again.
Mm-hmm.
Like this year sucks, but next year is going to be just as bad if they keep Penny Hardaway around.
Yeah, of course. You know, he can use the sell that we can replace everybody, because they can. And it's do you trust him to do that? I think is what the Memphis boosters are going to have to figure out, and the important power players there are going to have to figure out. I want to talk about Utah State because they hit top 20 on KenPom. Should not be a surprise. Jared Calhoun has been phenomenal since he got there. He was phenomenal at Youngstown State before that. This Utah State team is 14-1. They're 5-0 Mountain West. They have not played a murderer's row of Mountain West opponents quite yet. They've already played Fresno. They've already played San Jose State. They've already played Air Force. But they played Colorado State. Good Colorado State team. And beat them by 42. Saturday, they played Boise State at Boise. A solid Boise team. They've been pretty good since they lost the opener to Hawaii Pacific, I think it was, the D2 team. Utah State goes on the road and wins that by 25. Like, this is a team that we talk about playing to a certain level. They are doing what Michigan did in non-conference. They're doing that to Mountain West opponents, good and bad. They're doing what they should be. This was a team that was really, really good last year. Brought a lot of players back, a lot of the rotation back. You obviously keep Jared Calhoun, first time Utah State had a returning head coach in 3 or 4 years, whatever it was. I think I've said this before. I feel bad for Utah State that they're going to have to have another head coaching search this offseason when Jared Calhoun, he's going to be a candidate for a lot of jobs because of the job that he has done at Utah State. But this team is really good. This team is really, really good. Mountain West, San Diego State doesn't look like the juggernaut in the Mountain West that we thought they were going to be. It's a down year for a lot of teams. Utah State looks to be the class of that league. It might be the best non-power conference team out there. Excluding Gonzaga.
Yes. The first power conference team that Utah State will play this year will be in the round of 32, should they get there. Just going to say that.
I hope we do not get a Utah State St. Louis 8-9 game, because I think both of those programs deserve better seeds, and I think both of those programs deserve their crack at like a prove ourselves kind of game. But also, if those two programs are matched up together, I'm going to watch all of that. That would be a fun. That'd be a fun game.
I'd be sad but happy. They shouldn't have to play each other, but I'd be happy to watch it.
Yes, exactly. Well, let's flip to the week ahead. We got 4 big games we're going to highlight. 3 of them are on Tuesday. First one, Virginia at Louisville. This is a Louisville team that is reeling a bit since Michael Brown has been out. He has missed, I think it's 6 games since he with the back injury. Well, don't know if he's going to play in this game or not as of this recording, but Virginia is a really good team coming to town. This is a matchup of two teams that expected to be at the forefront of the ACC race. Both of them still can be, but I think Louisville, this being at home, is a very important spot for them. So what are the biggest keys to this game?
Maryland almost beat Virginia at home a couple weeks ago, and Virginia's defense was 59th in KenPom. It has been 3 weeks. Virginia's defense is now 23rd. They've more than doubled their standing on the defensive end. They held Stanford, Cal, NC State, and Virginia Tech, all 4 of their ACC opponents, to under 1 point per possession. I said on that episode right before the Virginia Tech game that Virginia's defense is way better than this, and I was confused why they were struggling so much because they're an unbelievable rim protection team. Mm-hmm. It turns out all it took was teams to start missing threes. Teams are not hitting threes against them in ACC play. Their rim protection is still unbelievable with Johan Grunlow and Ugonna Onyenso, 2 of the 15 best shot blockers in the country. You cannot score on this Virginia team if you are not hitting threes. But I know a team that can hit a lot of threes if they're healthy. And that is the Louisville Cardinals. So obviously, health notwithstanding, you need to hit a lot of shots to beat a Virginia team that you cannot score inside on. And Louisville at home against not Duke has hit a lot of threes this year. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the Boston College game was a little bit, but they showed a lot of resolve being able to pull that one out. And this one might have to be a little bit ugly too, but they're going to have to hit, like they hit 6 threes against Boston College. They're going to have to hit double that at least.
I like this Virginia team a lot. I got to see them in person when they went and played NC State, and now they beat the brakes off NC State. Some of it because of good things Virginia did, some of it because of negative things NC State did or did not do in that game. This Virginia team, to me, just looks kind of machine-esque, where they know what they are doing. They're going to do it. The execution is going to be at a high level. You can beat them. I mean, we've seen them get beat, but they are not going to really do it to themselves, right? To me, the way Louisville has been playing the last couple of games is the exact opposite from a high variance standpoint. And some of the way Louisville plays is indicative of a high variance team because they want to play fast. They want to shoot as many threes as possible. They want to do all the things that create high variance, quite frankly. And when you're doing it without your best player and your point guard, that creates some problems and some inconsistencies. I do wonder if the Stanford game that Louisville lost, where they had the lead, Stanford came back, won the game, kind of broke them a little bit. Obviously, you have the loss. You come back from that game. You come back from that road trip to California. You host Duke. You're going bananas at the beginning of that game. You blow a double-digit lead in the second half, lose that game. You come out at Boston College, and you were down double digits to a horrific Boston College team. A horrific Boston College team at home. Now they are able to come back and win the game, so they deserve credit for that. How much of that is a hangover from the Duke game, that slow start, and how much of it is just the vibes being really off around this team, with that inflection point kind of being the Stanford loss?
Well, you can never. It's always vibes. It's never what's actually going on in the court. It's always vibes. Vibes always wins.
Vibes always win when there are rumors of your star point guard kind of shutting it down for the draft. Fine, and nobody else on your team can really create. And it seems like there is just inconsistent effort that is being given in these kind of games. From an X-No perspective on the court, Louisville has the passing, the spacing, the shooters to stretch Virginia out, do the things that they need to do to beat Virginia. They will do the things that Virginia Tech did that allowed them to be successful. Virginia Tech, great extra pass team. They were really good on the boards in that game. Louisville's got to get better on the glass to hang with Virginia. But the way that they pass and they play on the perimeter should offset that in the way that it typically does for Louisville. But they're just vibes-wise, they're off right now. They're off right now. And I do think that this is a game to kind of get things back on track. But it's an interesting team and an interesting group right now. I don't know where the overall mindset is with this team.
Yeah, hopefully they get healthy, because when they are at full strength, they're a top 15 team in the country.
They are. They are. We're going to shift to the Big East on Tuesday night because UConn is going on the road to face Seton Hall. And this game may be gross if Seton Hall is able to have their way and drag UConn into the mud. But UConn doesn't mind playing in the mud either. This should be a fun game and a real test between two teams that we expect to be at the top of the Big East all season. So what are you looking for from this one?
It's a testament to how bad the Big East is, but UConn's schedule so far in Big East play, they've played 2 games against teams above 100 in KenPom. Like, this is like ACC a couple years ago bad. They've played nobody to begin this season, and then their 2 games in the top 100. Butler, easy win at home, and in that absolutely insane Providence game they almost lost. They probably should have lost.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we've really been able to see where UConn is like on the national radar in over a month. I don't really know if they're playing well right now because they're not playing teams that are testing them. And honestly, I don't even know if Seton Hall is one of those teams either. But we're going to at least find something out about if Seton Hall is truly able to, like you said, muck it up to the extent a home game that should be unbelievably slow. Can they get their steals? Can they get their blocks? Can their disruption defensively get UConn out of the pretty sets that Dan Hurley loves to run? If you make this UConn team beat you individually rather than the team basketball they play, 14th nationally in assist rate, Seton Hall is very good at forcing you to beat them individually and to get deflections and steals. I don't know if this UConn team has enough individual talent to do that. But if they do, this will be the first time in a long time we've actually been able to say definitively they have it.
2 keys in this game from the UConn perspective. I think you need Silas Demery and you need Malachi Smith to be good in this game. You don't need them to be your leading scorers. You don't need them to do anything like that. But this is why you have 2 point guards on your team, is to handle the kind of pressure and physicality that Seton Hall is going to throw at you. Should be a benefit for UConn there. The other thing is Terrace Reed cannot get in foul trouble. As physical as Seton Hall wants to be, it's easy for him to get in foul trouble the way Seton Hall is going to attack the paint. It's easy to get Terrace Reed in foul trouble there. Terrace Reed is also pretty good at getting himself in foul trouble from time to time. He's gotten a little bit better at it, but that has been something that has plagued him throughout his career. We've seen UConn with him and without him. And UConn is a very good team either way. But they are national championship good with him and, let's just say, like, vulnerable to an early round upset without him. He makes a big difference for them in the middle there. And in this kind of game, they need him to be on the floor and they need him to be impactful. If you get a great solo ball game, that's awesome. If you get a great Braylon Mullins game, that's awesome. But I think you need your point guards to be able to not allow Seton Hall to dictate tempo. They need to be the ones dictating tempo. And that's how UConn manages what should be an insane road environment.
If you stack up Silas Demery this season and his rate stats against Tristan Newton's, they're like identical. Mm-hmm. Senior season Tristan Newton, who finished 4th in KenPom Player of the Year that year, and Silas Demery, like identical. I thought he'd be really good for them. And obviously we talked about Scout Team earlier. Unbelievable show. Like, if you're watching this and you're not watching Scout Team, you made a mistake. But they kind of talk about how Silas Demery would fit in this UConn offense. He's been everything that anyone could have hoped of and more. And he's going to be huge in this game because Silas Demery is 6'4" and like all of 6'4". And if he's matched up with 5'10", maybe Bud Clark, like, you got to take advantage of that. As good of a defender as Bud Clark is, on both ends of the floor, you've got to take advantage of being 6 inches taller than the opposition star point guard.
You also know that Dan Hurley is super excited for this game. One, because he played at Seton Hall, and obviously that matters. But the idea that the toughness of his team is going to be tested, he's going to get to see how tough his guys are. I think he's excited. He's excited to see that some old fashioned Big East basketball, right?
Yeah, I would rather watch Memphis play 30 times than listen to a Dan Hurley press conference. I just no, thank you. After this game, if they win, he's going to be insufferable.
The other big game on Tuesday we're going to touch on here is Iowa State going to Allen Fieldhouse, playing the Kansas Jayhawks. This is what we have circled as probably the next big opportunity for an undefeated team to fall. Iowa State obviously being there. Kansas needs a win. Kansas needs a win. They are that miracle comeback from against TCU away from being 0-3 in the Big 12. Lost at West Virginia this weekend. Where is your panic meter on Kansas right now?
It's high. It's high. They scored 2 points in 9 minutes at one point in the second half against West Virginia here. Darren Peterson was good, but I'm starting to get a little bit worried about the assists. In his 3 Big 12 games, he has 4 assists. And with the amount of shots he's taken, that's a problem. It either means his teammates are not getting the job done, he doesn't understand the offense, or he's just not that good of a playmaker. And when he's not because he was shooting out of his mind prior to this game, he wasn't awful. I mean, 6 of 17 isn't great, but on difficult shot attempts. When you are shooting 6 of 17 and you only have 2 assists, and your team as a whole puts up 11, it's just a problem. The bench is really bad right now. Jaden Dawson came in from Loyola Chicago expecting to be a shooter. He's at 25%. Jamari McDowell had been shooting the lights out in non-con, invisible on Big 12 play. Elmarco Jackson, 7 threes all year. Cole Rosario was like dubbed the guy, like the role player earlier in the year, started the first 7 games for Kansas. He's at 26% from deep. He's barely playing these days. Like, who is... If Flory Badunga is going to be in foul trouble every game and Bill Self's going to auto bench him with 2 fouls in the first half, Darren Peterson doesn't have an otherworldly shooting game, and Melvin Council only hits threes in one of the games all year. Like, now you're just Xing off every option for them to like have a good game without Darren Peterson hero ball.
Darren Peterson is a really good 2. I think he's making it pretty clear he's not a 1, and that is totally fine. Because you can be really good and make a lot of money and win championships with a really good 2 guard. But there isn't the point guard. Like, if you put DeJuan Harris on this roster, I think that is awesome. I think this is the perfect roster for him to be on, because you need the Elliot Cadeau guy, the DeJuan Harris guy, who can just create and doesn't need the ball if he's not creating. Right? He's not somebody else who's going to be looking for shots. Trey White, Melvin Council, Darren Peterson, really good on their own, and we've seen each of them really flourish when they've been on the court. But because Peterson has been sporadic with his playing time, I do think the 3 of them together are still figuring out the rhythm a little bit at the detriment to everybody else on the roster. Right? Foul trouble obviously got Badunga in trouble. Bryson Tiller has been very inconsistent throughout the course of the season. The upside for this group is still really, really high. But this is the 3rd straight year now we've gotten in a Big 12 play, and we're like, oh, Kansas looks really limited. Like, there are issues other than just if Darren Peterson is going to play or not. And it's multiple issues. There's a lack of playmaking. There's inconsistent shooting. There's the inconsistent front court play. There's now bench concerns. Bill Self-trust concerns with who he wants to play. The season is in danger of kind of snowballing on Kansas here. If they beat Iowa State, though, all of that goes out the window. And this is the Kansas team that, can do whatever they want to do, right? The narrative around them changes very, very quickly. So there is a lot on the line here. Is there any reason to doubt Iowa State, though, coming into this game? Because that's another team that has simply answered every question thrown their way.
Yeah. I mean, Iowa State had been shooting over 40% from 3 in non-conference play. And I'm like, okay, that's going to fall back down to earth. And then we'll see what this team can do when the shots aren't falling. Through 3 Big 12 games, they're still at 40%. Like, they're not missing threes. And this is a team that I wouldn't say coming into the year a strength was the 3-point line. But they generate such good shots because unlike some of the teams we've talked about throughout the show, they have 2 creators. They have Taman Lipsey and Josh Jefferson, who are 2 unbelievable creators. And what happens when you have shooting alongside 2 unbelievable on-ball guys is you generate good shots. It's one thing to have good shooters. It's another thing to generate good looks. And Iowa State, the looks that they provide for Jamarian Bateman and Milan Momcilovic, unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Talk about depth. Way more depth. And it's not even like bench depth. It's like everyone in the starting lineup can do something to help. They're way more of a team than Kansas. They obviously bring back a lot more from last year. And in a game where, on paper, it's at least conceivable to say that Kansas has more talent just because they have the best player. But, like, as a team, it's not close right now.
No. You mentioned Momcilovic. He is shooting 55% from three on 111 attempts. Like, that is absurd. He leads the nation in true shooting percentage. He has been phenomenal this season. I am very excited, just in individual matchup wise, see Killian Torre defending Darren Peterson. That individual matchup is going to be a lot of fun.
I don't think Darren Peterson's excited.
You want to see somebody shoot up draft boards, pay attention to Twitter Tuesday night, Wednesday, Killian Torre after that. Because either he's going to be like, all right, yeah, he's come back to school. But I think there's a potential there with his defense and what he has shown this season that he could make a real statement with just his defense against Darren Peterson.
Yeah.
Mentioned Iowa State. Time to talk about Iowa. They're going to play at Purdue on Wednesday, as we talked about earlier. Important game for Iowa. Important game for Purdue. This Purdue team has gone a little bit since they've been tested at the level that maybe Iowa we expect them to. What are you watching for or looking out for in this game?
Purdue was not sharp at all in their Saturday game against Penn State, where they won by 8, but they were losing a bunch of the first half. They missed a ton of free throws. They played even on the boards, which is not what Purdue's been doing all year. Braden Smith, I think he needs to be more assertive. Obviously, he's exceptional and like he's getting those assists and he's going to break the record and all that. Purdue is best when Braden Smith is equal threat, scorer, and passer. And in this game where, I think he's going to take it personal. I'm pretty sure I remember hearing that Braden Smith and Bennett Sturts were roommates at a point guard camp this summer. I hope they both take this matchup personally because these are two of the best floor generals in the country. And I'd love to see them both be really assertive in two defenses that aren't really going to trap them. They're going to, let you beat them over the top. They're going to try to avoid you getting to the rim, but they don't mind you beating them over the top. Like we might see 15 total 3 attempts between Sturts and Smith, and that's what I want to see in this game. Like let the guards be unleashed here.
Yeah, I do think there has been something the last probably 2 or 3 games where it seems like Purdue is comfortable just letting Braden Smith have the ball 24/7, basically. Trey Kaufman's got to get his touches. Other guys got to get their touches as well. But it seems like the last couple of games, everyone's been like, okay, Braden, you go do what you need to do, and we'll figure it out. 26 points, 14 assists against Penn State. Really, really good performance. I want to see Iowa's front line, though, try and hold up against Purdue's front line because that, to me, is the biggest strength on weakness matchup in this game. The point guard battle is going to be a ton of fun to watch. And I think Iowa does not have a chance unless Bennett Sturts plays at least equal to what Braden Smith does in this game. But the front court's got to show up too. And that's been a question with Iowa all season long. Purdue has one of, if not the best front court in the country. Going on the road playing at Mackey. It's going to be an interesting test from that standpoint as well.
But Iowa's front court can shoot. And if Alvaro Fulgaris can get Oscar Clough or Trey Kaufman out of the paint and force them to guard up top, that could make things a lot easier for Iowa's offense to get rolling here.
Yeah, it is a good test too. We talked about this with Purdue in preseason, early season, when those guys have to guard in space and have to guard on the perimeter. How does that look? Are they able to do so? We'll find that out as well. This one should be a lot of fun to watch. We'll go back through and pick these games. I have made up a little bit of ground on you in our contest. You are now 2 up as opposed to 4 up. So we're making some progress here. We'll see if we can potentially draw back even. Virginia at Louisville. We will start with that, work our way back down the list. Who you got?
Let's go Louisville. Let's take the home team. I'm going to say they hit a bunch of threes. They find a way.
I'm going to take Virginia. I trust them more. And Louisville without Michael Brown, there's a section on it in the Rauf report, again, up on basketballreview.com, have been atrocious on both ends of the court. atrocious. I'm going to go Virginia. UConn or Seton Hall?
I think that this is where the contenders separate from the pretender, and UConn wins at Seton Hall.
I'm going to go UConn as well. I don't know if Seton Hall has enough offense to do what they need to do. I think it'll be a close, fun game, but I don't think Seton Hall has enough offense. Iowa State and Kansas.
Iowa State. Team versus player.
I'm going to go Iowa State as well, as much as it pains me, and we're going to look like fools for picking against Kansas at the Fog. I'm going to go Iowa State as well.
TCU game should have been a loss.
Should have been a loss. Iowa and Purdue.
If this was at Iowa, I actually think I would probably consider the Hawkeyes, but Purdue is not losing at home to this team.
I don't think so. I don't think so either. I know it might be a little bit boring for us to have the last 3 picks all the same, but you mentioned this week being where the contenders start to really separate themselves. UConn, Iowa State, and Purdue are in that category, certainly. I think Purdue handles business at home as well. We'll be back on Friday to recap these games and anything else crazy that might happen this week because, hey, Wisconsin goes into Ann Arbor and beats Michigan. Anything can happen. It's one of the reasons why we love the sport. Whatever that is, we will be back on Friday to break it all down. Matthew Winick, I'm Brian Rauf. We'll talk to you then.